So in this video I'm going to go through the list of depositions for the red rum trial for Stinky Stearns. Now before I get into it, I will apologise for the background noise. It is currently 7 o'clock in the evening. It is still basically 30 degrees or 33 degrees. It's somewhere around 100 degrees Fahrenheit still. So I've got the aircon running flat out, meaning that I'm working in the dining room, but you still get the noise from the aircon coming through. So apologies for that. You may also hear, as I'm recording, the sound of my dogs coming in and out of the dining room, because while they're in the lounge room keeping themselves cool, they like to make sure they know where I am at all times. So chances are they'll come in looking for me periodically and you'll hear that noise in the background. So thanks to Paula, or Plunder, I've basically gone in and had a look at the Osceola County Courthouse page to see where things are at in terms of documents, etc. So you may have seen Paula did a video on the depositions the other day. I haven't watched that in full, so I apologise if I'm being repetitive here. I tend to like to research these things for myself, and I try to not look at other people's content before I'm putting things out, so that I'm not inadvertently copying what they're doing, if that makes sense. Anyway, moving on. So what I'm going to look at today is there are 3 separate filings which are notices of deposition. All up there are 13 witnesses that at this point in time are being deposed and having interviews at one point in time. So what I'm going to go through is I'm going to look at those documents, and I'm going to explain who each one of those individuals is. There's only one person that I haven't quite figured out the connection with them yet, but hopefully over time we'll be able to figure that out. Now, for those of you who want copies of these documents, I am going to be putting them onto my Patreon over the next couple of days. If you haven't caught what's going on in terms of my Patreon, I've set up a free Patreon. So basically you can become a member of my Patreon for free, and for that pretty much every document that I share on my channel will then end up on my Patreon, available to members for free. I have, however, also added a $1 tier and a $2 tier for anyone who just feels that they'd like to support my channel that way. Occasionally there'll be things added just for those paid members. There may be things that are documents that are of a more sensitive nature, in which case they'll go in the $1 or $2 tiers. And I may, later on when I get myself a bit more organised, may even add in the occasional video just for paid members. That said, I've mentioned this a few times, I also have a channel membership here on YouTube, and for that you get members videos, members giveaways and stuff like that. So that's sort of where you get more of the extras. Now, one last thing before I launch into my video, and that is, if you like my content, please subscribe to my channel. I'm aiming for that goal of 4,000 subscribers, and it's so close. And of course, if you subscribe, it's free. It helps my channel, and it also means that you get notified of every upload that I do. With this particular channel, I try to get something out pretty much every day, so subscribing is worthwhile because it'll let you know when my stuff is coming out. So with all that said, let's just jump in and have a look at these documents and see what they mean. Now, as I said, there's 3 separate notices of taking depositions, and they all follow the same format. This one is actually the most recent one, filed on the 16th of January, and each of them basically, I'll just read this paragraph above the information first, and this is what all of them say, basically. So you've got State of Florida, plaintiff versus Stephen Michael Stearns, defendant. Notice of taking deposition comes now the defendant, herein named above by and through the undersigned attorney, and herewith gives notice of the taking of depositions of the below listed individuals for the office of the public defender. 9th Judicial Circuit of remote Zoom video deposition or in person at 435 North Orange Avenue, Orlando, Florida, at the below indicated time. So these are depositions for the defendant. So it'll be interesting to see what information comes from this. So we have these 3 depositions which will occur on the 29th of January, and that is Madison Brady, Italo Brett and Kenneth Dale. So, as you know, Madison Brady and Italo Brett are both teachers at Maddie's school. Kenneth Dale is a detective, I think, just from memory. I've got the stuff to go through that with you anyway, so we'll see when we get there. But he is part of the law enforcement team anyway. He was part of the investigation. So let's have a look at these 3 before we look at the next notice of depositions. So it is possible that amongst all the FOIA documents that I've got that there could be a report written by Corporal Kenneth Dale. I've still got a list with quite a number of untitled PDFs to go through, but just going through the documents from the 2 bigger documents, I found we have a paragraph here. Corporal Kenneth Dale is from the Sex Crimes Squad, and basically he was part of the forensic investigation at the house. So then there's a long list of things that he collected at the house, at the residence, when they did that forensic investigation. So next on the list is Madison Brady, which was the counsellor at Maddie's school. So for all the teachers, there is actually a playlist that I've created which is all case files. So if you want to go listen to her interview in full from around the time that Maddie was missing, you can just hop into the playlist, and I will add the link for this interview in the description section under this video. So what I'm going to do with both Madison Brady and Italo Brett is just play you a small excerpt from their previous interviews, just to give you a bit of a reminder of what they were about.
I heard a little bit about her background in terms of having ADHD, a lot of problems with focus that affects her schoolwork and grades, and then some mental health concerns in terms of a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. So from there, I have been doing ongoing check-ins with her throughout the school year thus far. I think we've met about, I was looking at it earlier, 6 times.
Okay, since the beginning of the school year?
Correct.
Got it, okay.
When she has come to me, it's often been those feelings of panic. She's come to me like in the middle of class or during lunchtime just feeling really panicked, kind of heavy breathing, feeling really overwhelmed. And when we've had our conversations about, well, what's going on, what's making you feel this way, I've gotten responses saying, well, it's my anxiety, sometimes I don't know, I'm just really overstimulated with all the noise in the cafeteria. But I've also gotten responses with, well, things at home with her. And when I pressed about that, it seemed to be things along the lines of, well, she gets upset that I'm forgetful or that I don't clean my room the way she wants me to. And we talked about what that does to affect her, and she...
So I'd say she's going to be a fairly significant witness when this goes to trial. And I was sitting here thinking, well, why are these specific people for basically depositions for the defence? And when you think about Madison Brady, a lot of what she discussed was the breakdown in the relationship between Jen and Maddie, essentially, which makes me think that the defence is going to use that in some way, and that they are going to try and paint Jen in a bad light. We have Madison talks at one stage about working out strategies with Maddie on how to cope with the way that Jen makes her feel. So there's definitely, I think, going to be some accusations slung at Jen in terms of her role as a parent, her support of Maddie, and Maddie's home life, I would say. So definitely I think this will be a very interesting one to listen to at the trial. So the next person they have listed is Italo Brett, which is the teacher that had the choir. I think he refers to it as treble or something. So same thing, choir, singing group. I know that he was the teacher that Jen messaged to find out if Maddie had been at school. And we know that Jen didn't message him until 5:35 in the afternoon. So quite late in the afternoon when she finally messaged him to find out why Maddie was, where Maddie was, and to find out if Maddie had been at school. So again, makes me think that the defence is going to be going at Jen pretty hard. It doesn't look good for a parent to be only bothering to try and contact the school well after an hour and a half after their child has not come out of school. So I can imagine where they're going with that. As for Maddie in the classroom with him, I'm not sure if there's anything that would be useful to the defence. I'm just going to play a little bit though, just to give you some idea again of where things were at with this Italo Brett.
Did you notice any sort of like recent changes in her behavior from the start of the school year until now?
Not really, no. She just seemed happier within the third period class that we were in,
Okay.
which is the advanced treble course I have. She seemed happier there. She learned her music really quickly, as with the rest of the girls in that class. She usually is very participatory. She's usually up performing with us. She doesn't miss a concert. She doesn't miss anything. The only thing I guess I could note is like on Friday she was sitting, but that a lot of the girls sit at random times, and that's related to either they have cramps or whatever. So I didn't think that was odd, but you know, she usually is up and participating and active.
She didn't tell you that anything was wrong on Friday?
No.
Okay.
From memory, I don't recall hearing anything from this teacher in relation to him having any knowledge of what was going on in Maddie's home life or anything to do with her mental health or anything like that. So I think the main thing here will be Jen not bothering to contact him till 5:36 or whatever it was. But I also wonder, so he's saying here that Maddie never missed a performance. Now, I'm thinking that there would have been out of hours performances probably, and I'm wondering if Jen attended those performances, because if they are trying to make Jen look bad and she didn't bother to attend Maddie's performances, that would certainly be something that the defence would use. So this again is a deposition for the defence, and this was actually filed on the 12th of November, so this was one of the first notices that was filed. And there's only one person here listed, and that is Meredith McCaskill. I did a bit of digging, and she is connected to the forensic side of this case. So I'll just pull up the document, or what I have, that shows her role. I did not find any reports from her. It's possible that they may have not been released, or it's possible that they're in that pile of PDFs that I haven't finished getting through yet. So you can see on the bottom corner of this document, you have her listed as Crime Laboratory Analyst, Biology Section. So that means she would have done all the tests on the swabs that were done on Stinky, and of course any biological stuff, any swabs or anything from the crime scene, or any of the crime scenes basically, because there's multiple crime scenes here. You have the house, you have the vehicle, you have where Maddie was left. So multiple crime scenes, any biological matter that's been collected or swabbed or anything from those crime scenes, she also would have analysed. So obviously very, very important for the defence, and you can see the importance of that. They obviously they want to create doubt. I think it seems like they are definitely going to be attempting to create doubt with this case. Now, not having seen any of her reports, we don't know if there's anything in the reports that could create a link with Jen, or anything that the defence team can question in terms of accuracy, contamination, anything like that. But definitely another one that will be interesting to hear from when this goes to trial. So this notice was filed on the 8th of January, so not the most recent one, but it's certainly the biggest one. And again, this is the public defender who is doing this notice of taking depositions. So it seems that at this point in time, the prosecution has not made any notice of depositions, or it's certainly not anything in the court files that would suggest that. So let's have a look at this list. We have Barbara and Gerald Belmore. If those names ring a bell, that's because that's that really cute old couple that lived near Jen and Stefan who were interviewed. So now I actually didn't get a clip for them. I think that is in my playlist also, and I will add a link for them in the description. But they spoke about when they last saw Maddie, when they last saw Jen, and there was that curious comment about them seeing Stefan sitting in Jen's car over the weekend. I'm not sure if there was a bit of confusion there as to how the defence would specifically use them. I'm not sure. I kind of had to think about it, and I was thinking, well, other than showing the relationship between Juan and Maddie, because they spoke about that relationship and showed that it was quite a close relationship and that Juan did a lot with Maddie, and perhaps maybe they're going to use that to show what a poor parent Jen was, because they never saw Jen doing any of that stuff. Other than that, I'm really not sure what else they might use. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on what the angle might be in terms of interviewing this couple. Then after them, you have Alejandro. Now, I'm playing with fire here probably by mentioning her name, because I know very early on when people started covering this case, anytime someone mentioned her, she came at them. This is the girlfriend that Stefan had from Disney. So you can imagine they're probably going to try and use her as a character witness. But honestly, I don't think she would be a good choice of witness for the defence, because you could imagine in cross-examination the sort of questions that the prosecution might be asking. I'd imagine that the prosecution will also be definitely wanting to talk with her. I can't imagine that there would be much positive, by way of positive things that she could give for Stearns. But then I guess when we think about the discussions he had with her in relation to the home life with Jen, I think she can probably attest to Jen accepting some pretty poor behaviour from Stefan, which could again put it all back on Jen. Basically, Jen allowed this to happen. Maybe they're expecting her to also make some comments about Jen as an individual, things that he has said to her. I'm not sure. I can see that the angle here could be her basically highlighting the things that Jen allowed in her house with Stearns because of the various things that Stearns told her. Now, you may not be familiar with the name James Carpenter. I had to look it up myself to find out what was going on there. He is the son of a property owner on, I believe, Old Hickory Tree Road, and I have got a document which I'll show you. And he contacted law enforcement because they had camera footage of the Lincoln going past their property. So that's where he comes into this case. How it connects with the defendant, who knows. Next you have Thomas Carris. That, of course, is the wonderful witness who saw Stefan changing the tyre in his car and called the location in. So interesting that they have called him in for a deposition. I think it is possible that they are going to try and argue that he didn't specifically see Stearns. Maybe try and call into question his credibility as a witness. Pretty dumb idea if you ask me, because that was the location where Maddie was found, and a guy matching Stefan's description, changing a car, matching the description of Stefan's car. What more can I say? Brittany Destefano was the girl in the shop, so you can see where that comes in. So it looks like they are bringing in people that had sightings of Stefan on the particular day that he took Maddie out to where he left her. Then you have Angela Duca, and that is one of Maddie's teachers again. So she was the teacher that had the door decorating, so I think there's probably some things that she could contribute in terms of that. All of these, I'm going to go back over statements with them, so I'll talk more on them shortly. Now, Elizabeth Ellis. I have not figured out who Elizabeth Ellis is, and before you comment that you believe that she is the parent of one of Maddie's friends, I'm trying really hard here not to dox anyone. But no, she is not the parent of that particular friend, if you know which friend I'm talking about. the mother of that friend has an entirely different first name. I had wondered if perhaps sometimes with people they are called by their middle name, and perhaps this friend, her first name actually is Elizabeth and not the name that we hear in interviews. Otherwise, it may have absolutely no connection whatsoever with the best friend and be something to do with law enforcement. Although I have noticed that in this case there's no number next to it, which we saw with the other detectives and other law enforcement people. So I'm thinking possibly a witness, as in a civilian witness. Finally on the list you have Detective Jared Fegan, and that is Sarasota County. If you're wondering what Sarasota County is, that's basically Northport. So Northport is in Sarasota County. He was one of the officers who went to Chris and Deb Stern's house and also participated in the search of the storage unit, and there's actually a report written by him, and I'll go through that when I get to him looking through these various documents. So, like I said, I haven't done any clips from Barbara and Gerald Belmore. I think they're quite memorable as it is. I think if you've heard their interviews you would remember them. That's a cute old couple. Likewise, I haven't used any clips from Mariley. I really don't know how to pronounce that. Because I think that's an interview that's probably worth going back over as well to get an idea of what she might have to say and what she might have to contribute in terms of the defence. But let's look at all these other ones. So again, of course, a shout out to Plunder for this document. I've said this in a previous video, I've got a copy somewhere, but hers is the first one that pops up on my iPad when I'm looking for stuff, so I just use that. So this is a report relating to James Carpenter. So on March the 2nd, 2024, at approximately 12:22 hours, Officer Angelo, ID 866, was dispatched to make a phone call for an additional information to case 24001896. I made contact with the caller James Carpenter over the phone, who stated he had a surveillance video of his parents' residence at 4841 Hickory Tree Road, St. Cloud. Okay, that's actually not far from where Maddie actually was. James stated the video was showing a silver sedan going westbound on Hickory Tree Road on February 26, 2024, approximately 13:20 hours. James stated he believed the vehicle to be matching the description of the vehicle involved in the case. I provided a link to James to upload the video to evidence.com, which he did. This supplement will be forwarded to Criminal Investigation Division for further review. So, I have not found any witness statement from James Carpenter, so I'm not sure if they followed up and did a witness statement with him, but he has been deposed to give evidence in this case. Okay, so moving on to Thomas Carris, and we actually have a rundown of the sworn statement. So on March 4th, 2024, at approximately 15:09 hours, so 3:09, Detective Smallwood and I contacted Thomas Carris, the witness who provided the location to Osceola County deputies. Thomas stated the following in a sworn statement. Thomas stated he observed the press release in regards to Stefan's vehicle. Thomas stated he was driving down Hickory Tree Road on 24th of February 2024. He noticed the Lincoln on the west side of the road and a male standing next to the vehicle. The vehicle had a spare tyre on the rear driver's side. Thomas stated he texted a client of his at 13:20 hours saying that he was 20 minutes away from his house. This would be in the time frame where Stefan passes Hickory Tree Elementary at 13:17 hours at 1:17. Stefan was shown a photo lineup, I think that's meant to be Thomas, was shown a photo lineup by Officer Vanessa Carey in which he positively identified Stefan as the person who he saw standing next to the Lincoln at 5670 Hickory Tree Road. Thomas drew on a paper the location of Stefan's vehicle and identified surrounding trees where Madeline was found. I asked Thomas if anything stood out to him about Stefan as he passed by. Thomas stated Stefan had a scared look to him, but Thomas thought he was upset due to the vehicle being broke down on the side of the road. Now, I'm wondering if that time at the top... Oh no, that's right, sorry. So, the time at the top is when they made contact, and around 1:20 was when he was making contact with a client, and obviously he saw Stefan around that time. So you can see here that the defence would probably try to argue that he didn't specifically see Stefan. Like I said, why would you bother? I think that pretty much got him banged to rights anyway. I don't think any jury is going to be convinced if the defence try to discredit this witness. Next we have Brittany Destefano. So on the 4th of March at approximately 9:30, this particular officer, and I can't remember who this was, but they went to this location in St Cloud in reference to a tip advising that an employee possibly observed the suspect on the 26th of February. I spoke to the employee, Brittany Destefano, who provided me with a verbal statement summarised to the following. On the 26th of February 2024, unknown what time, Brittany was assisting at the cash register when she observed a subject wearing a white t-shirt paying for $20 of gas. The subject then left the business. Later on in the week, she observed the news and saw that a suspect was arrested in reference to the juvenile's disappearance, and noticed that the suspect arrested was the subject that was in the business buying gas. Brittany was not able to provide much detail about the suspect, time the suspect was inside the business, or what type of vehicle the suspect was driving due to how busy the business was. The interview was audio recorded and uploaded to evidence.com. Brittany and I went through the surveillance video from that date but were unable to locate the suspect on surveillance video. Brittany printed out the transactions for 26th of the 2nd of 2024 and 27th of the 2nd of 2024, but she was unable to locate the transaction. On the 5th of March, I obtained a portion of the surveillance video which was uploaded to evidence.com. Now, I suspect that for starters, you have this person in a white t-shirt, when I believe that the shirts that he was observed in were blue and red. So I suspect that this witness did not actually encounter Stearns. And I think this is why the defence team want to interview her. I don't know if there is a reason for wanting to interview her, but I do question the relevance of this person to this case. Certainly, I think we're looking at a some other dude kind of defence. Sod, some other dude. I think they're going to try and claim that none of it was Stefan's fault, or none of it was Stefan, and possibly try and discredit witnesses. Who knows? Okay, let's move on. Next we have Angela DeLuca, who is of course the teacher. So I'm going to play a little clip from her.
How do you...
She's in my first period class, so she's supposed to be my first period class.
Okay. What do you teach?
I teach.
Okay. How well do you know her?
I thought pretty well. She has been in my class all year round. She's always very sweet, and she struggles a bit. I mean, all my kids are intensive kids, so they're the students who are struggling. She was on my door decorating team.
So she's, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but she's been in your class since fall?
Since the beginning of the year,
fall
yes,
of 23, and then, okay, okay.
Now, we know that Angela DeLuca was one of the really supportive teachers with Maddie. So she had the door decorating thing, and it sounds like she was quite clued into Maddie. She had a bit of a conversation with Maddie and her friends when they were doing the door decorating. And there was that story that she said about, she mentioned that they were doing sex ed around that time, and that Maddie and her friends had been talking about a Lady Gaga song and had been a bit scandalised by what the song was actually about. So I don't know how that would tie in terms of defence, but I think it could be something to do with if there is more from this feature in connection with contact with Jen. Maybe that's what it is, because all these teachers have basically said they've not met Jen. They only had communication with Jen via that app, the school app. So perhaps that is part of it. Like I said, it could be to paint Jen in a bad light. It could also be something to maybe try and show a positive relationship with Stearns. I'm not sure. Now, like I said, there's also the witness, Elizabeth Ellis. She's not the parent of Maddie's friend, I'll tell you that now. I went through all the documents. I have not found anything in the documents where she pops up. So I really couldn't tell you who she is. Like I said before, if you know who she is, let me know, but please don't post anything if it's going to be doxing a minor. So if she's connected with any of the children in this case, don't post anything. Maybe it's another teacher that we haven't heard from. I think we've now heard from 6 teachers. I believe there's probably 6 periods in the day at Maddie's school, but she could also be someone connected to the school that we just haven't heard from. The final person who's been deposed is a Detective Jared Fegan, and he is the detective from down Sarasota Way, the one who interviewed or went to Chris and Deb Stearns' house, and I have a full report written by him, so I'm going to go through that right now. Now, I think as I go through this one, it'll become self-explanatory as to why they would want to depose this particular detective. So let's go through his statement. On Wednesday, February 28th, at approximately 9:46, it's actually quite late, Detective Robles and I arrived on scene at, and I'm not going to give the address there, such and such street, in support of this investigation. On our arrival, we observed a female, later identified as Deborah Stearns, outside her residence and calling out for Maddie. 2 vehicles were present at the residence, a tan colour Lincoln bearing Florida tag BIS, which was unoccupied and forward facing in the driveway. This vehicle is registered to the homeowner, Christopher Stearns. The second vehicle was parked in the swale in front of the residence. This vehicle was facing east and was also unoccupied and is described as a dark grey-brown coloured Honda bearing Florida tag IN49TI. This vehicle is registered to Stephen Stearns. Both vehicles were visually inspected and nothing overtly suspicious was observed. Contact was eventually made with Deborah, who was very emotional during our initial interaction. Initially, Deborah only appeared to be upset by a torso she found in her son Stefan's room. Deborah would elaborate on this torso and described it as a sex doll. This was later determined to be a rubber plastic sex toy found by Deborah when she was cleaning the room where Stefan had been staying. Deborah advised that Stefan was not here, but she believed he had returned to the property last night. Okay, so here is where we get the whole dog story. It was later divulged by Deborah that she was awoken at exactly 3:19 this morning to her 5 dogs barking in a manner to alert her that someone was at the house. Deborah's husband Christopher Stearns was not home last night, as he had ventured to Orange County at approximately 2300 hours, 11 o'clock, which is wrong, to assist their son, Stefan Stearns, with a recent housing crisis. So he actually left at midnight. Deborah believed that if Stefan returned to their residence, that he either returned to collect his firearms or for cash that was kept within the home by her and Christopher. Deborah advised that she retrieved and secured 2 handguns and a rifle from Stefan's room and secured them inside her bedroom last evening. I call BS on that. He lived in that house. Why would she even bother to do that? But it's telling that he had 2 handguns and a rifle in his room. Deborah permitted us entry into her residence to conduct a security sweep of the home. Nothing of evidentiary value was observed, and the room where Stefan resided was photographed to accurately depict its appearance. The 28 digital images were later uploaded to evidence.com, and they have not appeared through any of the FOIA requests. So that is really, really curious. I'd like to know what is shown in those photos. Deborah would later disclose that she and Christopher are aware of the allegations against their son, and that Christopher is currently being interviewed by the agency investigating the allegations. Deborah expressed her disgust at the crimes her son is alleged to have committed and is hoping that Madeline is found alive. Deborah opined that these allegations worried her to the point that when she found the sex torso, she initially believed it to be real. This then led her to exit her residence and call out for Maddie. This is what Detective Robles and I heard at our arrival, as Deborah ultimately believed that Stefan had returned at 3:19 hours and potentially abandoned Maddie in the wooded area surrounding their residence. I walked the exterior of the home and the accessible adjoining lots and did not locate anything of evidentiary value. I'm just going to call BS on that story, and I've actually done a video about this because Deborah actually changed her story in relation to this. So, yeah, complete utter BS. After clearing this location, I responded to the storage facility, where I was then asked to check a model home at E-Price Boulevard. I'm guessing that this is now sold, so I'm probably not doxing. I hope I'm not doxing. As this is a property that Stefan may have frequented due to Christopher's relationship with the builder, Bright Homes, which we know is where Chris was working apparently. This residence was secure and nothing of evidentiary value was located. I then escorted a canine rescue team over to the Snug Street address, and they canvassed the area in Snug Street. Furthermore, the same supplement will accurately reflect my involvement on the area canvasses of Commerce Parkway. I would then return to the storage facility location, where I would remain until the search warrant was executed on the storage unit in question. At no point did I enter the unit or handle any of the contents. This concludes my involvement in this matter. So presumably they're going to try and show that Stefan didn't actually go down to Northport and didn't actually enter the house and didn't actually log on to Google to try and access his account or destroy a hard drive which went missing from his computer. So they're going to try, I believe, to say, hey look, you know, Deb Stearns knows her son, she would know if he entered the house. I'm guessing that's kind of the angle that they're going from there. So that's the 13 people who to date have been listed as people who've been called for depositions. It's an interesting list. Some of them you can kind of figure out the angle that the defence is going from. Others, well, yeah, interesting. There's a few obvious exceptions from this list. But I suspect we're going to see more lists come out of more people who are being deposed. And of course that all depends on what the defence team get in terms of discovery from prosecution. But it's certainly interesting to see that they're already getting in with the depositions, and it'll be interesting to see what's happening in terms of prosecution. We know that the prosecutor mentioned that she had quite a full ticket at the time when this first all went into court, so it's possibly that she hasn't looked at any depositions at this point in time. So I hope this has been enlightening and not too drab and dreary, and I hope the sound of the fans going in the background hasn't been too annoying for you. It's just simply way too hot right now to try and work on anything without any cooling. So thanks for listening. If you are new, please subscribe to my channel. Also, please hit the like button. That gets these videos out into the algorithm, gets more people seeing them. And please leave a comment. I will apologise if YouTube turns the comments off. I will do my best to turn them back on again, but I have to confess, because obviously a lot of the views that occur with my channel are occurring in American time, and I'm asleep during the time that a lot of you are watching these videos, other than me waking up multiple times through the night and checking that my comments are turned on or off. There will be long periods when my comments are turned off, and I can't control that. I apologise. I have been trying to get it sorted out and really not achieving much by way of success. I do, like I said, turn the comments back on, so if you are keen to leave comments, feel free to come back and comment if the comments have been turned back on. That's the best I can do right now. I've been told that other people have experienced this and eventually the problem becomes someone else's problem, but right now it seems to be my problem. So apologies for that. Anyway, sorry to be a bit of a downer at the end there, but thank you anyway for listening. Like I said, please leave a comment if possible, and just thank you. I love reading everyone's comments. I love the amount of thought that people are putting into their comments, and the really deep thinking that's going on within this community. You guys are pretty awesome. So I am looking forward to reading your comments, and hence the reason I'm really hoping that comments are left on. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Into